That's
It's
it.
over. Ah! Destruction!
What?
Hi friends, Stark here. So, I spoke to legendary SoCal Fox Lucky, interviewing one of Melee's very best for decades, to pick his brain about his most recent tournament run at Wavelength, a major tournament that saw his return to form with wins on several top boxes, Marths, Puffs, and a Falco you may have heard of, named Mango. And while we spoke about a lot of things, I really wanted to pick the brain of a top player. And in order to highlight some of the very best of our interviews, I've decided to make this video, framing it under the step-by-step process of how to be a top Melee player. Now, I always get a couple comments on my videos about people who tend to take either the thumbnail or the title a little too seriously. No, this is not a 100% guarantee to make you the next Mango or Lucky if you follow these tips. You're gonna learn a lot about Lucky and some of Melee culture along the way. So if you're interested in listening to the whole interview uncut, please let me know. I can post that separately if people want to hear it. And if you haven't already, please check to see if you are subscribed to the channel. I've been trying to put more Melee into the world as of late, and only about 10% of people watching are subscribed. So if you like what you're seeing, or even if you don't, you should subscribe to really show me what's what. That being said, let's jump into the video. Step 1. Make sure you have cool names for your characters. Tags are important. I don't think anybody would deny that because it's almost like a name for your competitive space. What name you give yourself when joining a community becomes a brand or a namesake that people see you as. And sometimes you pick it yourself, and other times the inspiration is thrust upon you. But no matter where you get your tag from, your namesake and the namesake of your characters help define and guide the playstyles that you will eventually show. Here's what Lucky had to say about his tag and his character names.
I don't think there's like any specific place. They're kind of just over the years of playing and just having a bunch of different friends that I think we've just had a history of calling ourselves dumbass nicknames. Like if you are familiar with Mango at all, he's called himself like the Golden Glove Marquez.
Yes.
And stuff like that. Like we've always just kind of thought of dumbass nicknames, and I don't know why or where that comes from. It's just something we've done since we were kids, and it's kind of just spawned all the way from the Batman when I think we were like, I think we had to have been like 13 years old playing Free For All. We had like it was just like a stay over kind of smash fest at my house with a couple friends before we even knew about the competitive scene. And for some reason, I just picked the black Captain Falcon color and called myself Batman for absolutely no reason when I was 13 years old. And then we kind of just made that joke like years later once we started, you know, going to tournaments and streaming and stuff. And yeah, like I said, we've been kind of doing that for years. And like I think the J-Bone thing happened maybe a couple years ago, not too long. And I think I had just watched this movie called This Is the End.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a scene where a bunch of the guys confront Emma Stone or Emma Watson. I forget her name.
Emma Stone?
No, Emma Watson, I believe.
Was it Emma Watson?
Yeah. I won't give too much context in the stream, but basically they're trying to prove to her that they're not trying to cause her any harm. And so Jonah just calls himself like 18 different nicknames in like a 2-second span, and J-Bone was one of my favorite ones, so I started saying that for no reason.
It's honestly, it's so catchy. I think I've started calling some of my J-named friends J-Bone, and it rolls off the tongue so smoothly.
Yeah, it's pretty funny too.
What about your tag, Lucky? Where did Lucky come from?
Lucky's a pretty funny little story. As a kid, I wasn't allowed to have pets in the house. My mom was just super against it. You know, she didn't want pets on the rug, on the couches, just inside the house was just a big no-no. So I, as a little kid, refused to get a pet unless it could be inside the house. So like I grew up without a pet because I refused. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna let the cold get my poor dog or cat.
That's very.
And so yeah, and so I had this best friend as a kid who had a dog named Lucky, and it was just the cutest little dog. And I would go over to my friend's house and just play with the dog all the time. And I don't know why, I love that dog so much. And I kind of just used it as a tag one time because Mango had taken me to a like LAN center, a PC LAN center, and we had to play. I think it was like a LAN session for Counter-Strike, and he's like, "You need to have a tag," and I was like, "I have nothing. I've never had a gamer tag. I don't know what do I even use." He's like, "Just first name that comes to mind," and I just Lucky the dog. I just thought of it, and I just kind of used it for no reason.
Feel like a rite of passage as you play Melee for more and more years is you start to name your characters. So we've talked about the Batman and its reference to maybe Black Falcon, but what were some other nicknames you've given your characters? Do you have any funky nicknames that you name your alternate cast of characters?
There was. I remember I called my Marth Mango Jr. for a long time, and there was like no reason for that at all. It made no sense, but for some reason I just thought my Marth was going to be the best. It was going to make me become the best player in the world, so I wanted it to be called Mango Jr.
Amazing.
I will say at one point in time, when I wanted to start becoming a more tech chase heavy Falcon, I wanted to stop calling myself the Batman, and I definitely called myself Jizro.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
Yeah, so that was a pretty funny one.
Man, Jizrobe is so fire.
Yeah. Jizrobe. Yeah.
Jizzy's crazy.
Yeah. The one I always wanted to just kind of smurf with, like on Slippy, if it ever became like a thing, as I wanted to start playing Samus to name myself Jugs, which I thought would be funny. JuGS86 for Hugo hugs. So I thought that would be hilarious, but I think Jizrobe is probably the funniest one.
You could bring JuGS86 into 2025.
It's not a dead idea, that's for sure.
Step 2. Get rid of your ego. For better or for worse, once you start really getting into a competitive game, I'm sure you all recognize the experiences where you battle with phases of strong play, of weak play, of learning, and of stagnance. This is normal, and these phases are not determinant of how you'll perform on the big stage. You can be playing the best you've ever played and bust her out of bracket at 1-2. I might be saying this from personal experience, or you can head into a tournament casually, or playing a different character, or feeling nervous, but rise to the challenge. Getting rid of ego means understanding and accepting the context and factors that might affect your tournament experience, but doing your best anyway. Lucky just had an incredible run at the major Wavelength, and here's how he felt going into the tournament. So Wavelength was a tournament that happened not too long ago. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah.
Heading, you know, maybe you remember it a little bit. How did you feel heading into Wavelength? So not necessarily before day one even began, like the week before, or like as you entered. What was your mentality of your Melee play heading into the tournament?
I hate to be like cliche about this. I had no faith going into that tournament. I was having controller problems. I had a lot of like life stuff going on. I actually, when I went to the airport for that tournament, like I was having such a bad week leading into that event with just personal stuff that I got to the airport and my flight was delayed by like 3 or 4 hours. I just sat there like thinking, this is a sign. I have always gone to tournaments when I say I'm going to go. If I'm signed up for a bracket, I've never dropped out. I've just always been like against the idea of like, if I said I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there because I had a flight purchased for me. So I was like, I owe this to, you know, to players that aren't as fortunate to be able to like attend events and stuff. But I sat there for those 3 hours debating on just not going to that event. Like I did not want to go to Wavelength. Like it took a lot. I remember I sat there, I was DMing people and people were telling me not to go. Some people were telling me to go, just, you know, use it as a vacation, just don't enter the bracket. I think, you know, it's just expectations were super low, which funny enough can just help with nerves and stuff. So leading into it, like I said, I wasn't a very confident little guy.
Well, I think it's incredible that when the world gave all those signs that you could possibly interpret as a, maybe I'll just head home. Yeah. Really cool to see you follow through. And I think you're right. I wonder if maybe when you have no expectations because everything feels like, oh man, it just hasn't been the week, maybe that played a role.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely to an extent, for sure.
Step 3. Take losses with grace and understand where you went wrong. There has never been a player so good at any game that they've never experienced loss. And even in Smash, and especially in Melee, the GOATs of Smash, the best players, probably have the most experience playing and more losses than newer players have games played in general. It's important to embrace losses, analyze where the loss may have come from, and work towards addressing that moving forward. We cover this when Lucky describes his historic Wavelength run, beginning with the loss to top Puff player Dawson in Winners Round 2. Lucky will describe in our interview why or where his loss may have come from, and the decisions he made in order to continue on in bracket. Now, if we go to the bracket and we head over to round 2 first, where you played Dawson, that was a close one, but Dawson ended up taking it. What's the mentality at that point? How does it feel after that particular loss?
Like I had said before, I had some controller problems where I was accidentally light shielding whenever I would try to jump cancel grab, which would make me shield stop instead of doing a running jump cancel grab. So I would kind of just try to grab someone and shield grab right in front of them instead. And it was really frustrating, especially against Dawson, because I think it happened maybe once or twice, which made me scared to grab, and you'd need to grab Jigglypuff as a Fox player. So when I lost it, I was like, okay, I played pretty well. I almost won that set. I had a handful of like handicaps going into it with the whole grab thing. I feel like I'm playing well. If I can just maybe get around that grab issue, I feel like I can still come back in the bracket and just play better in losers, you know? When you have like a fighting game like Street Fighter, everything's digital input, so it's just up equals up, down equals down, left equals left, punch equals punch. It's very simple. When you look at a game like Melee, everything's analog, so like even the tiniest differences in like the stick tightness, the triggers, like the way that they're like pressed down all the way or not pressed down all the way, like all that stuff matters so much more than like other competitive games. And it's really, really frustrating, because if you try to have someone fix something, yeah, it's like if the answer is they have to replace that something, then it's like you're gonna most likely have a completely different feel on it, which is really, really frustrating. So more often than not, players don't even want to touch their controller when they're at a big tournament, because sure, maybe it's fixed, but it's going to feel so different that it's going to mess with your muscle memory.
Wow.
So it can be a really frustrating thing to go through when you have controller problems, especially during a big tournament like that. Oh, don't get me started on controller prices. It is so upsetting. It brings the old man out of me.
Yeah, I see it, and I'm like, look, maybe I'll just stick with the one I got from a flea market for $25. You know, maybe I'll just have to get better, and then that $275 difference won't matter. Step 4. Develop your own playstyle. Despite the various metafied documents and YouTube guides, there's never going to be one singular way to play a character. Especially in such a nuanced game and series like Smash Bros., you'll be able to carve your own identity within your character for sure. Be yourself and play in the way that brings you towards your goals most. Here's what top Smash professional Lucky has to say about his own playstyle in relation to the other players of the exact same character after almost 2 decades of refining his play.
The unknown aspect of like playstyles and combo routes, game plans, like whatever, like everything that goes into a single match of Melee was just completely unknown. Like nowadays when you play a match, there is a list of things you are supposed to do as a like specific player, right? Like as a Fox player, there are specific rules you are supposed to follow if you want to be a good Fox. When I was coming into the scene when I was a little kid, that didn't exist. So there was just so much like variables that like there's so many variables and like so much expression that went into a single game of Melee, because there was no like flowchart, there was no checklist of how you were supposed to play a character. Everyone was trying to make stuff up as it went. You know, like I remember when people played Fox back when I was younger, everyone was trying to like super just laser camp all the floaties, and like no one wanted to even press the A button versus floaties. Oh, like Mango and I were just like, well, no, let's just go so fast that the floaties can't do anything. Like, who cares? Let's just shield pressure. Like, we shield pressure, just press buttons on them, just who cares? And like, you know, it was just something different every time you watched Melee, where now it's like I said, I think there's a specific set of rules, which is, you know, it's a beautiful thing in its own right, but it's just very, very different when you look at it that way.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself then like a an off flowchart Fox? Like, have you always liked playing against that grain of what you should do? Or where do you kind of see yourself in a following the rules of how you should play Fox?
I think on average, I'm on the. It's funny, right? Because I want to say I lean more towards a unorthodox playstyle, but when I'm playing my absolute best, it's when I'm mixing in both. I'm playing very, very by the rules for a good portion of a single match, and then out of nowhere for a stock or two, I'll just go off the rails and just be as different as possible to throw people off. So I think somewhere in the middle, I would say.
That's awesome. Step 5. You're not going to win the tournament. And this is a good thing, I promise. When talking to Lucky about how he felt after eliminating 3 incredible Smash players in Faust, Joshman, and Mango back to back, I wanted to know how a professional Smash player perceives their ability to win, especially while in mid-bracket. Here's some insight about how you might shape your mentality in order to stay composed at the top level. Let's listen to what Lucky has to say.
It's just going down 0-2. You kind of already felt like you just kind of feel like it's over. So it's like, I think part of those nerves go away. You're not really scared of losing anymore because you're just so close to losing anyways. You're like, I might as well just give it my best shot. I'm probably gonna lose anyways. Let's just see how close I can make it.
Is there a strategy to losing the 2 games on purpose to give you that fire under your ass?
I wouldn't say so. I don't think it's the best idea. I've put myself in that spot a lot on accident, and I'm never exactly happy being there, but I do feel like it makes me personally focus a lot harder. You get a little more a little life when you're at Death's Door.
Wow. So at Wavelength, something that I thought was so impressive when looking over your bracket is after that loss to Dawson, across that tournament run, you won over 4 Game 5 sets.
Yeah.
Like, it kept happening. And
yeah.
what I'm interested in knowing is, at that level where everybody you're playing is like a top 100 somewhere in their player, like everybody is scary. How are you keeping yourself composed at that level of play in Game 5? Like, is there what's going through your mind? Are you stopping certain thoughts from popping in there? How do you feel in that moment in Game 5?
Well, it depends, obviously, from tournament to tournament, but there specifically, I didn't fix my controller from that set with Dawson until top 8. So I think I had 2 Game 5s, or if not 3, outside of the top 8, and those sets specifically, my controller was still acting up. So I think in like most of them, I went down 0-2, and it felt like a lot of it was due to the controller. And so I would just kind of complain in my head saying, okay, I'm down, but I literally feel like I'm a lot better than this, and this controller is just kind of hindering my experience. So I'm going to just try and ignore that aspect of the game and just play to my other strengths. And for some reason, it just worked so well that it just felt like I should have lost when you go down 0-2 as a Fox player and you have to deal with some counter picks. Marth on FD, I think, one of the big ones. It's like when you're just playing so good that you just start winning on your opponent's counter pick, you're just like, okay, I guess I just have no reason to be nervous. Like, if I'm gonna lose, it should technically be over at this point, so I might as well just give it my all,
That's so true. And as we approach step 5, just a reminder to hit the like button if you're enjoying. This isn't my job or anything, but it does make me feel good to see the little number go up. Step 6, know the field. Everyone has demons. Players, matchups, or scenarios that are huge, recurring barriers for success in your given esport of choice. And it's not always the number 1 player that is someone's biggest demon. Lucky's answer might surprise you. I asked Lucky who his biggest demon was. Take a moment to pause and guess. You can write it down, you can leave a comment, or just think it in your mind. And then listen to the answer. Were you right? Let's listen what Lucky has to say. Who gives you that, oh man, I'm nervous feeling? Is there anybody?
Honestly, I think the biggest demon off the top of my head is like randomly Axe. I think Axe a Pikachu player because I have a really bad habit of feeling like if something's not working, then I should just never do it again. Like they shown me that they can beat this option, so I don't want to do that option anymore. And I have a kind of like a baby coach slash friend that helps me out a lot sometimes at tournaments, and he gets really, really mad at me for doing that because just because a good tool didn't work once doesn't make it a bad tool. It's still a good tool that you need to implement and, suggest to your opponent that you'll still do. But when I play against Axe, sometimes he literally will 0 to def you or edge guard you at 0%, and it just terrifies me so hard that I don't want to represent that tool anymore. And so traditionally, I've had some really close sets with Axe, but once we get to game 5, he ends up kind of taking all the momentum because I'll just get a little more and more scared as the set goes on. So he might be actually the #1 demon for me.
That's crazy. One of the most defining parts of Lucky's brand and legacy has been his technical and advanced prowess as a Fox player, but also his alignment and friendship and practice and entertainment connections with Mango, one of Melee's most revered and notable characters. But they were best friends, duking it out in-game long before the idea of a Melee pro permeated in any capacity in either of their heads. Given that Mango was 3-0'd by Lucky at this very tournament, Lucky spoke to me about how that win felt, and how their relationship and friendship and support for one another drives their gameplay to provide some of Melee's best sets in history.
I played versus Mango. We warmed up together against each other, actually. And he was in a pretty sour mood from losing to, I think, Hungrybox.
Yeah, in winners.
Yeah, naturally, I was a little bummed about too, because I'd rather play H-Box than I would Mango, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So when we warmed up together, we were kind of talking. We were, I think, drinking a beer or two in the back in the VIP room.
Let's go.
And he was kind of messing me up, but it was also like I was moving so well that I thought in my head, I was like, if I really, really, really try right now, I feel like I have a good shot at beating him. And usually when I warm up, I try my absolute ass off to beat his ass in friendlies, just so I can make him more motivated to win the tournament. But I think because we were just kind of being so casual about it, trying to relax before the set, we just didn't have that same energy that we normally do. And it was like super casual, but he was, like I said, messing me up. So once we walked on stage, I was like, okay, I really want him to win this tournament, but I also don't want to just give it to him for free. So I'm going to just try as hard as I can. If I get the W, cool. But if it forces him to step up his game and play better so that he beats me, then he has a better chance of winning the tournament. So if I just go easy on him, then he's got 0 chance of winning. There's no way he's going to be Aklo if I just go easy on him. Mm-hmm. So I might as well just try my best and see what happens. And unfortunately, I I played great. I think that was one of the best sets I played like all year. I was moving well. I was reading roles. I was edge guarding well. I was punishing hard. I think I played great. I obviously don't think he played his best, but I do remember seeing signs of him really wanting to win the set. Certain things he did, like waiting for a laser grab, waiting in the corner sometimes, not super panicking whenever, because people make fun of the whole reading his role 8 times or whatever. But there was still a lot of times where he would take his time in spots so much that I know he wanted to win. So it's, he can say that he didn't fully try, which I could agree with that. I don't think his heart was in it 100%, but there were moments where he definitely didn't want to lose. And I take a lot of pride in that because, that's my guy. He's my friend, best friend, but I still want to beat his ass when I can. So
I think it's because you both simultaneously want to win, but also and want the other person to win, and you don't want to give it to them for free. Is there like all these dynamics of how much you two have played and understand each other that help create these beautiful sets?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is we don't usually just want to beat each other. We also want to, I don't want to say embarrass the other player, but we want to definitely style on each other, because I don't even think we're thinking about the crowd when we play against each other, right? We're not trying to impress them. We're not trying to entertain them. We're not trying to just get the W or the L. We're 100% just trying to win like a moral battle versus each other. Because like I said, we grew up together. We've been always about style and about trying to just one up the other. And to us, the win or the loss isn't as it's not as important as making the other person feel smaller. And so I think because of that mentality we've had growing up together, just like as natural rivals and everything we do, I think that just comes out super hard in our melee sets, and that's why people really, really enjoy them.
And finally, step 8. You can't force success. Look, games are meant for fun. It's crazy that sometimes we have to remind ourselves of this. But yes, not everything has to be so serious. And especially with the release of a new game, like Rivals of Aether 2 for example, Lucky and Mango have been channeling their stream energy and efforts into so much more of this new competitive game as opposed to Melee. And while this might seem counterintuitive to becoming a Melee pro, Lucky helps remind upcoming players that having fun should be the primary goal. Take breaks, play when you are into it, and if you don't feel like you want to play, you don't have to continually play. Let your motivation drive you, and let your goals push you to doing what you want to do. Let's listen to Lucky talk about where his past, present, and future lie with Melee, as well as Rivals 2 and our final outro. Let's take a listen. And
Yeah.
it's funny that I originally, when I was planning questions for the interview, I wanted to think about like, hey, did this performance at Wavelength impact your motivation for any other remaining tournaments you have for the year or going into next year's Melee? But right at the same time as Wavelength was happening, Rivals 2 beta started coming out, or like Rivals 2 as a full game came out.
Yeah.
And so I want to take a brief detour on the questions. I know I sent the document, but if I could take a brief detour to ask that, it's clear you've been invested in Rivals of Aether 2, and you've given a lot of hope to the Forsbros out there. It's been it's been awesome to watch, especially because like Rivals feels so good in so many ways. It's been really fun. And across the many sets of Forsburn and Crag over the last couple weeks, do you feel your potential as a top player in Rivals 2? Like, do you see yourself as somebody who can contend in these like emerging bigger and bigger brackets, as someone who can do really well at those as well?
It's really hard to say. I think right now I'm just having fun with the game, and I'm genuinely enjoying it for the most part when I'm not raging about Orcane camping me. But
many such cases.
Yeah, exactly. So, but for the most part, I'm just really having fun. I do think I'm interested in seeing how good I can get. I don't really have any expectations for it. I've just spent, for better or worse, half of my life competing in Melee. So it's like at this point, I'm not exactly in a rush to go compete in something else. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm not really bent out of shape about it. I'll always have Melee to go back to if I do want to get my competitive itch on.
Word.
So for now, it's just, one stream at a time and one Forsburn match at a time. Got a lot of hope for it right now, or I got a lot of hope for it personally.
Do you have any plans on entering any Rivals tournaments moving forward? Is it like a case-by-case basis? What's the vibe on Lucky in-person rival tournaments?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of thought about looking up locals in my local area just to see. But right now, I'm kind of just playing it online and definitely seeing how good I can get. I've talked to Mango about it a little bit, and we're floating the idea of possibly tryharding as hard as we can until Genesis. And maybe taking Genesis serious for that, for Rivals 2,
That's pretty heat if it happens.
Yeah, yeah. It's not set in stone, because obviously Genesis is like a random Super Bowl for Melee. It's just, we always do complain about Melee for Genesis, since it's like this weird off season that leads into it. So everyone, or at least Mango and I, we tend to enjoy the holidays more than most people, and when we do, we just don't play much Melee. Yeah. So when we go into Genesis, we're a little rusty. So at this moment, we're having so much fun playing Rivals that maybe Rivals will be the power play for us to play at Genesis. So we'll see.
Oh. And if I could ask you one more question.
Yeah, of course.
If everything goes as planned, Lucky, what are your plans for 2025? Are there anything you've been thinking of as far as streaming, tournament entering, games that you want to make happen, or that you want to continue, or that you want to dedicate to? Are there any goals so far?
At the current moment, I wouldn't say so. As far as streaming goes, I just want to stay consistent. I'm having a lot of fun with Rivals, so I'm going to keep playing that. Whatever happens with Melee happens with Melee. I'm not exactly in a rush to spend a whole year competing again. I'm actually more than anything looking forward to just focusing on a lot of like aspects in life. It might mean taking a little bit of a break from traveling, which I'm not opposed to doing at all. This past year, I think I traveled, if not twice a month, once every single month this year. And it was a lot of traveling, a lot of melee. So I'm kind of gonna look at 2025 as a reset to everything. I might really take a backseat to competing just for 1 year at least, just to focus on life, focus on health, get on the workout grinds, and you know, just make it more of a me year. And then 2026, maybe I'll get back into the competitive scene and just really gun for a top rank again. You know.
Nice. Well, I'm certainly, as well as many others, probably looking forward to the Jacked Lucky arc. I think this is going to be huge.
I'm looking forward to it myself.
Maybe you'll come back a Rano main. I think there'd be a lot of people, you know, very happy with this development. Although
honestly, it might be what I'm missing in life.
There's a lot of Force Bros who are clinging on to you and Void playing the character. I guess Leo plays it too, but there's a lot of what if maybe this can be the last question. What are your words of hope to the Forsburn players out there?
See, the thing is, I know Void and I are kind of the Forsburns that a lot of people know about, and it's mostly because we stream. We stream every day. We're consistent with streaming. People know us. People see us. There are other Forsburns out there that are putting in work. You know, shout outs to Soul Rifle and Pikmon. But for the most part, if you're a Forsburn player, just know you're gonna have to work. But it just means you're the better player. If you're working that much harder and you're getting a W, that means you earned that W. There was no gimmick. It was a little bit of deception, but ultimately you're just getting better and better and better. And whenever they nerf those other busted characters, you're gonna be the better player. So just keep at it.
That's it. If you play the character long enough, everyone else will get nerfed, and you will be the best character.
Yeah. And you're just gonna be working so much harder that you're gonna naturally be better at the game. That when their characters do get nerfed, they're not gonna be carried anymore. So that, you know, the better player is gonna win in the end.
It brings a tear to my eye. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed listening to Lucky's interview. These are the top 8 steps to becoming a Melee Pro. Now, I cannot guarantee, little disclaimer, that you will become a Melee Pro after watching this video, but I hope Lucky's answers can provide some insight, and huge shout outs to Lucky for taking the time to talk with me. He is the ultimate homie, and I had a lot of fun listening to him. So once again, the entire interview was over an hour. These are just some glimpses into some of my favorite discussion points. And I wanted to bring some of what he said and who he is into the world. So thank you again, Lucky, for sharing that piece of you with us, and good luck with Rivals 2. May the Force Bros get to support you for a long time ahead. Friends, thank you again for all the support and all the videos I've been posting this year. I know that I haven't been a consistent creator, but I've had a lot of fun, and the feedback on many comments, even the criticisms, even some of the absurd comments I've seen, have been a very learning-filled experience for me. So, I don't know if I'll have another video before New Year's. I hope so. But to 2025, I hope we all finish the rest of this year doing the best that we can. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.